Hey everyone, Joe Menza here. Thank you for joining me on another painting video. I hope you enjoy this one. We're going to do a bit of a winter scene, and this is 11 by 15 Master's Touch paper. And I've wet it down with my spray bottle, and I'm just kind of blending that in with the brush. Now here I'm going into, I've got accidentally touched a little green there, but I'm going for like three colors: cerulean, cobalt, and ultramarine, just to have a variety of cool sky colors for a nice winter scene. So I'm just kind of dabbing that in here with the large Ron Ranson brush, coming on top with a little bit of the cobalt, leaving a little bit of white here. We'll do some clouds and add a little bit of white. So here I'm dancing in a little bit of just China white, and I'm just kind of placing that on the paper, and then I will blend that in. It does a couple things. It helps to blend the colors out a little bit and tone them down a little bit, make them a little more subtle, and then add some realistic looking clouds. So as you can see, what I do here is I have a few different Ron Ranson brushes and some generic ones, which are very soft. And what I'll do here is I'll take a clean brush that's not wet and has no paint on it, and I will use the softness of that brush while the paint is still wet, and then I will blend. As I'm doing here, I'm blending in, and it creates a very soft, very blended looking sky. So the next thing I want to do here is I want to make like a icy looking pond. Again, sticking with the sky colors, cerulean, and shaping this to kind of a little bit of a curve here. Now, you probably wouldn't see this color in nature, but if you were looking out, frozen ponds tend to look kind of whitish or really dark, like almost like black. But, you know, we put our little artistic spin on things. So this is kind of like just a frozen, very cool pond. Or river, I should say, a little stream maybe. And then again, I'm taking that clean brush. You can see this is one of those generic-y, is it the, yeah. That's one of the generic-y brushes I ordered off Amazon, and that's pretty much all I'll use that brush for, except maybe doing, maybe wetting the paper down. It's good for that. But I typically don't paint with it. This allows me to do a lot of blending. I just grabbed a little bit of white. I can tone down things a little bit and give it that little blur, that softness. As long as you do that when it's wet, or even if you respray the painting down very lightly, you can always reblend. So back here, I'm coming in now, going back to this cobalt. Again, sticking with the sky colors. We have the same three colors that I started with. And I'm going to do a nice little mountain range there. Nothing fancy. Just keep it very, very simple. Put it in with as few strokes as possible. And then the bottom, I'm just going to kind of blend that out a little bit. Almost create a little bit of a mist. Again, using a clean brush, clean, dry brush. Now, I know a lot of you will probably only have maybe one or two, maybe you have two different sizes on the brush. So that's something to consider. But if you can get a spare, you can get a spare, for a couple of bucks. It doesn't matter. You can go to Hobby Lobby. Any soft, larger brush will do for this blending process. And, I mean, you could maybe pick up a little package of them, and you can have a few to the side, because they work great for this. If you want to try this particular technique, I know this probably isn't for everyone. Me, I'm trying to always come up with different ways to do things. I look at a lot of watercolor paintings that artists are fantastic. But a lot of them, they follow the same traditional rules of, transparent, and they're all great. But for me, I want to really, I don't know, I'm trying to do something very, very different, as you know. And a lot of that involves experimentation. And one of the things that offered me some freedom is when I decided, hey, I can use white if I want to use white. Um, so I use a variety of whites. I'll use white gouache, I'll use China white, titanium white, or I'll use the Doc PH Martin's bleed proof white, which is almost like a gouache. I can't really tell you what it is. It comes in a little jar. It's like $9 or $10. And it just seems to, I don't know, I just like it. I can't even describe exactly what it is because I'm not really entirely sure. But they call it a watercolor paint. So here I've taken some green, some sap green, and I'll mix that with a little something else, but to create a tree line back there. And now what I'm going to do, if you watch, I'm taking a little of that white on the end of my fan brush, and I'm laying that on the top because I want to have a mist layer there. I know I already blended that in, but this is a way you can create a mist. And I'm going to make it misty on the bottom a little bit too, just by blending that in. And again, this is China white. Now, Chinese or China white is transparent watercolor. It is a watercolor. And I know they say to reserve your whites, and I'll do that to a certain point, but I kind of paint by my imagination. So for that reason, I'm going to have to use white. Otherwise, I have to sit there and plan it out, and it's just not. It's great if you can plan that out, and it's clever, and I think it's a great tool to use. But for me, I just rather go in and use the white, and it's just something I don't have to think about. For me, it's not fun to have to plan it out, put masking on there. It becomes work then. Now you can see I've created this mist in here. You don't even really know it's white, but you have a mist in there above and kind of below the trees, and you have the little bit of shadow even. When you drag that paint, you can get a little bit of a shadow coming off. Now here I'm grabbing some more white, and I'm just going to fill in the areas where I want to have, I want to extend the snow. I did leave some whites. I'm not really too worried about that. So then I can kind of shape my little river here. So I'll just squeeze some out and I'll put it on top. I don't allow white to dry and then reactivate it like I do with a lot of other colors, because the little bit of amount you get when you re-wet it, it's so diluted that you need almost straight out of the tube for what I'm doing. So again, I'm just kind of pulling this down into the little bit of pulling the white into the water. Creates almost like a reflection effect. Then you can see, you look in the background, got some nice light, nice sky, and those mountains came out pretty well. It got a little lucky on the side mountain there. It almost looks like it has a little light coming off the top of it. So again, if you see me reaching up, I'm going to that white I'm putting up there. And I'm trying to pull this down. I kind of want to make it look like it goes down a little bit. Almost a little bit of a hill coming down into the stream being slightly recessed. And just by adding the little snow, see, it looks like the snow is on top of that stream. And this is why I use less expensive paints. I'll go to Hobby Lobby. The Hobby Lobby brand is not bad if you're going to use a lot of paint. Like this, if you're going to go a lot of neat paint, which means straight from the tube, you don't want to spend a ton of money on paint. So, and you're not worried about pigment quality too much because you're using so much. So the Hobby Lobby brand, when it goes on sale, it's $3.50 a tube. And you can get the tubes from, what does Michaels use? They use Artist Loft. And those paints are pretty inexpensive too. Now, I do notice the colors will vary a little bit. Like the indigo from Michaels is bluer, and the indigo from Master's Touch from Hobby Lobby is more purple. I like the Hobby Lobby version better. I mean, I could always add a little bit of red to it or something like that. Now, I gave this a little bit of a spray. I do want to work in a little, little color into this snow. But you have to be careful because snow and water can look similar. One of the things I've been struggling with, like if you make it like more blue, it can be confused by the viewer as water. So you want it to kind of just look like, you definitely don't want to have snow mistaken for water and vice versa. Okay, so at the base of some of this snow, I just want to create a little bit of a border, just to kind of define the edge a little bit, create almost like a little, not really a shadow, but if you look at a scene like this, you'll notice there's little defining edges. And just putting a couple in there sometimes is all you need. I'm just blending it a little with my finger. If you do too much, it'll look unnatural. So now I've jumped over to this, I've got the Bob Ross brush, 2-inch brush. I like the bristles on here. It can create like, very fast you can put in foliage. You just dip it in the paint, rub it into the paint on the palette, and within seconds you have a tree, an immediate tree. And of course we work from light to dark, so we go with a lighter color and then go with a darker color. And I'll put a couple more in the background over here. This is the, what is this, the little smaller Bob Ross brush. See how the bristles just naturally, this brush does not hold water like the Ron Ranson brush, but it allows you to put in almost natural foliage very quickly, and then you can go back and define the details a little later. So we got some pine trees here started. And I'll come back in with I'll try it with this brush, putting the darks in. I really actually prefer to use a fan brush, really. And sometimes you got to try different things. It's probably a little too dark. If I'm being honest, the dark is too dark. Should be more like a dark green or lean to the blue side. And I'm going to put some little bushes back here. Make these a slightly different tone because they are a little further out. But one thing to remember is I am going to put snow on the trees. So that's going to cover up a lot of what I'm doing there. Coming back in with a little green. A lot of what I do is trial and error. I mean, I go in with an idea and, that's not right. And I just want you to see that you can have the freedom to do this any way you want. And you shouldn't sit around and say, well, that's wrong and that's wrong. The only thing about art is that you do a painting and it doesn't come out really the vision you had in your mind, or when you look at it, you're not pleased with it. That doesn't mean it's wrong. That doesn't mean, if you're planning on being the greatest ever and entering these contests, and having technical skills or something, it's going to take years and years to do that. So really, you ought to stick with the fun part of it and, enjoying yourself and trying things. A big chunk of art is just having fun and trying to see what you like, what you don't like, what colors work, what colors pop. And that's really, if you have fun and you're throwing stuff down on paper, and you also leave a little room for, hey, I know this isn't going to come out to my vision. I'm going to let it flow. It's a process. If you can understand that it's a process and that you're willing to throw yourself to the idea that what will be, and that you have some control over it, but give up some control. Float. You know, when you are in a swimming pool and when you're learning to swim, one of the first things they teach you is how to float. You put your arms out, you lay back in the water, and you relax, and you just float on the top of the water. And obviously, it's a skill to be able to do that. You learn to do that, but you're not controlling the water and the buoyancy and, you know, the elements that were already there before you came into the process. The same goes for this. There are certain elements, drying, humidity, just allow for and let it happen, you know, let things happen. And at the end, you know, all of this thing culminates into a unique piece of art. And at the end of the day, don't get hung up. I did this wrong. This didn't come out too good. This didn't come out. Because you're a judge of one. You're judging your own piece of work. And if you look back and, you know, you say, everything's art. It's just art. I just let it happen. I'm just the instrument. I'm just God's instrument. And I'm just, you know, doing my thing. It'll all work out in the end. So I didn't like the way this green was here. I need to get some snow back in here. Again, this leading from what I was saying about things not being intentional. I don't really want all this green on the ground. I mean, there's nothing wrong with green pine trees. But for the most part, it's winter, so there shouldn't be a lot of green. And I'm going to hit this with a little bit of water. So I'm kind of rebuilding this little hill. I did want it coming down, if you remember originally. So this is one of those instances where you're fighting against unintended consequences. And sometimes you can win, and sometimes you can sit back and look at it and go, that's an interesting result. I just learned something. And the more comfortable you get, the more relaxed you get painting, the less you are going to fret over minor details. You'll just let the chips fall where they fall. Now, sometimes you make shapes of things. This is where I run into a problem. I had one where my mountain, and I still do this for some reason, I'll make like 5 peaks on there, and the middle one will be like the bigger one. And it kind of looks like a hand. And it's like I fall back to that. I don't know why, but I kind of fall back to the same design. I don't know if it's just the way my brain works. But you'll notice commonalities and why you can recognize other artists, and you can go, oh, look at that's his. Look at the way he makes mountains. Look at the way he does skies, or look at what he does with the light. Or she, even, you might say, look at her painting. Her painting, she always does this, and she always has, uses masking fluid even, which you know as an artist how that works, and you could say, oh, that, that person uses a lot more water and they have more diffusion or more granulation, and right away you can recognize another artist's style. So I've almost got this back again. I've come back. I'm using the bleed-proof white, and I'm trying to follow the slope of this little hill. And that can work. I mean, there's a little green in there, but it's okay because it works with the trees. So a little bit of fussing there. So this one's mostly done, except for a few just a little minor details here and there. I like to put in a little layers of white in certain areas just because it does dry back. That is one thing you have to be prepared with when you're using white in these paintings, is that they dry back flatter and duller and lighter. And so if you want that mound of snow to be very white, you might have to use a larger amount or kind of go back a couple times. See how bright this is as I'm putting this in. Now, as that dries down, you'll notice that kind of goes away a little bit. Now I'm just going to take this is that soft brush I told you about. These brushes here are very, very inexpensive. And they're great for blending, and they're great for washing, just putting water on the paper even, you know. But see, you could take a look at it. See how I'm blending this now? Very soft bristles. It's not trimmed in any way. I wouldn't really paint with it. But they're great to have because they're inexpensive. And again, any less expensive. I know a lot of people in our group, our Ron Ranson group on Facebook, have tried and used, myself included, different larger, what they call the hake, or as we have pronounced it in the past, hake brush. A lot of them, they lose hairs, they don't have the trimmed edge, and they're not the best to paint with, but they do have their place. Now, one difference that I've brought in is I've brought the fan brush into watercolor. I don't see too many people. Did see someone on Instagram, they paint largely gouache using like only a fan brush, which I thought was very interesting. I believe the name of that artist is Tommy Art. I think that's the artist. And they do gouache paintings. I believe he does gouache paintings mostly. Small format, but does urban scenes. Very, very artistic, very talented technique. Very, very skilled. And I enjoy seeing that person's art. I mean, I am on Instagram if you want to follow me over there. And then, of course, I've, as of this video recording, it's late December 2021, I've reopened my Etsy shop. I didn't have any paintings listed for a long, long time. But I've reopened my Etsy shop, and I have started listing many paintings over there. So if you're interested in purchasing any of my art, it is available there. And be sure to subscribe and comment. You can also do there's like a little applause thing underneath the video if you want to. I have people ask me all the time, how can I contribute this or that? Or, people want to send you Venmo and, different things like that, which I'm not doing that at the moment. But you can go over, you could do 1 month of Patreon. There's one you can do a couple of dollars if you want to. It's up to you. For those people that want to ask, I'm not looking for anything. It does help defer some of the cost of materials, but that's really about it. This isn't my goal is to, make anything, not looking to make a living off of this. If it happens, it'd be fine. Down the road, though, I want to perfect what I'm doing as much as it can be perfected and teach people in person. I'm an in-person person. As you can see, I like to talk, and I like to talk to people and share ideas and thoughts and things like that. And for me, that's best done in person. Social media is a great tool, but ultimately that's what I'd like to do. Having a class and having groups of people. I think that'd be the most fun, talking with people and interacting, like in-person interacting. If we could ever get done with this COVID thing, which I don't usually mention in these videos just because I want to keep everything positive, but I know a lot of people are at home, stressed out, depressed, and, it gets to me too, but the painting really helps me. I couldn't imagine a world in which I didn't paint. And it's just, doing positive, relaxing scenes like this is what I really enjoy. So I'm trying to put a little shadow down in the back here. Not entirely successfully. I'm putting a little shadow back there where the little edge of this is. And I'm going to have to go over it with a little bit of white. I'm happy with the snowfall on my trees. White is a great thing to have in your painting repair kit. There is a lot you can fix that goes wrong in your painting with white. You can see, if you rewind this or go back, you can see how the very brightest areas that I had painted before have settled down, and they're not as bright. I think that's one of the reasons why people don't like to use white in watercolor paintings, because it stands out more than the other paint. But that's why I've started using spray bottles, and I might give it a little mist of blue or a little mist of yellow, and it cuts down on the whiteness. So this one here, we're going to be closing this out a little bit of smoothing. Just a little bit of taking that soft brush, just very, very carefully. Just kind of blending that a little bit, blending those colors in. Of course, if you can't remember any of the links, joemenzaart.com with 2 A's, or just joemenza.com, you can go to my website, and I have different things updated there, and links to my shop, and links to videos. And so if you can remember my name, you can check out my website. And as always, if you have any questions, I do get questions. Usually it's about the materials I'm using. People will ask where I got a particular palette or where to buy something. But if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment area. I'm happy to answer anything. So here it is with a mat on there. Now I always use a mat that I've messed up. You can see this one's got paint on it. In case when the painting's still wet, I don't want to mess up a mat, and I've messed up so many of them. So until it's dry, I will use an old mat with paint on it. So again, just some fine details. So that's the last thing I'll do, is I'll put a mat on it, and it will help me get an idea of if there's anything else. It just creates a window into the universe you've just created. You could paint with the mat over it the whole time, but I don't know. I like to surprise myself. Even when I look at it, I put it on, and you get that ooh-ah factor to have the mat. And these mats you can order very inexpensively off of. You can get like a 10-pack. You can get these off of Amazon as well. I feel like I'm always promoting Amazon, but that's where you get things these days. There's a couple of birds I popped in with my Micron pen. And I'll do a little signature on the bottom. And that's it. I thank you so much for clicking on, subscribing. I think I'm at, as of this video, 8,600 subscribers. And I don't really worry about such things. I mean, it's more than I thought I'd ever have people watching me paint. So it's warms my heart that so many people are enjoying something that I'm doing, and hopefully what I'm doing gives back to other artists. I've watched videos, and I see some things I've done, and I've seen them catching on a little bit. So I know it's happening. I do know. I watch. And I see other things and people doing other things, and I see the bleed-proof white and people trying some different things, and it's like, maybe it's not me, but I think some things are catching on, and it kind of gives me a little, a little tickle that I'm in some way influencing the art world in some minor way. So here it is. This is the finished painting. I thank everybody so much, and I will see you next time.